horrible whine coming out of there on overrun, which I'd not heard before. The whine was always on power, but I'm just coasting here downhill, 4th gear. It's in 5th as well, but it's probably the front output. Well, I can attribute everything to that bloody bearing on the transfer box, front output.
Transmission noise was really worrying. I kind of got desensitized to it in the end, and because it didn't really change. There was noise on overrun, there was noise on power, there was noise. It got worse up to 80 kilometers an hour, but after about 60 or so, the tires drown it out. So it's just incredibly noisy. The moment I went over like 91 kilometers an hour, I'd get a grinding noise, which is, and I think the grinding noise that happens at low speed, under sort of 15 kilometers an hour, is all UJ related. I'm fairly certain it's the rear one at the diff end, because that's the one I couldn't get much grease into, or only one cup with square grease. So I think the UJs account for a lot of the noise. However, the front, and I'm going to do the bearing on the front output housing on the transfer box, and that will potentially be the sort of an EastEnders noise, but with bearings, as you're sort of in that cruise phase, and you get the kind of the kangarooing, you get this whining that comes in and out, and if it's not that bearing, I'll be interested what it is. So I'm hoping it's more that bearing than the entire gearbox that's being a problem.
It's time to take this front prop shaft off, partly because I need to investigate the bearing and the seal and all this in the front flange of the transfer box. But it also means so what I'm going to do is take this off, drive it with just the rear one on, see if that changes any of the noises, and then deal with the flange here, and then I'll probably put a new prop on, which I've got on the shelf. Keep this as a spare and replace the UJs. Let's move to the front. This is the pain with working on this rocky surface. The wheels sink, and then the middle is a lot higher, so I've got not a lot of space to manoeuvre, because it's like basically the chassis is at my chest height. 7 of the 8 are off, except for this one. It's just rounding. Just rotate the prop, and we've got a drip, and that's going to be transfer box oil. I think you can see there we've got a bit of leak. Coming probably down the splines. Or maybe this is accumulated. Yeah, it's probably a weep that's accumulated behind the prop shaft flange, and it's now leaked out now that it's separated. There's the diff. How much play it's got. No, I can't feel any up and down play. Oh, tiny bit of play. You can see the play. I think actually the nut's loose. The nut's not moving, and the flange is. So this is loose and able to move up and down. That's the cause of the leak, because the seal's not going to be touching. What's the movement caused by? It might be the bearing and not having. This may have unwound a bit, or has been replaced and not torqued up properly. It's also allowing fluid to come down the splines, potentially, come out of here. Anyway, it'll still be good to drive it, because then I'll be able to see what impact the front prop has had and whether this is the cause of a noise.
So this is the fastest I've ever travelled in this Defender. 100, well 60 miles an hour. Let's go and overrun. in there on overrun. So front props removed at the moment. We're braking. 70, 60, 50. So on power going up a hill. Third gear. Fourth. Fifth gear. So there's no vibration, no grinding. And this is as fast as I've driven it, and it's nothing like the journey was. Horrendous noise it was, grinding. So I wonder if that's the transfer box then, front output of the transfer box. That's nothing particularly untoward. I don't think that overrun. It's gone power. It's still got the grinding when I brake and come to a stop. There's still kind of a grrr. That's neutral. Going at 95 kilometers an hour. I think that's tyre noise. Yeah, that's pretty much all tyre noise. I put the clutch down and put it into fifth, and that's when I could hear the whining again. Just under 90, cruising, clutch in, out of gear. There's a bit of a noise when you come out of neutral into fifth. Clutch in. Might still be there a little bit on neutral.
Let's try and get this off. See how loose it is. Oh, that's loose. See how loose that was. There's a washer, soaked in oil. See the play. I'll be honest, there's no play in that bearing. No play up and down. Play that I feel is in the splines. I think that's alright, if I'm honest. I think let's get the seal out and have a look at the bearing. So that's going to have to come out anyway. Drip, drip. No playing. No playing the bearing. Yes, I think it's alright, but I mean, I've got a bearing. I could technically replace it. You know what, I think I'll replace the flange and see how the bearing goes. And it's not that big a deal to get it off. I'll just have to put a new, you know, I've got a new flange, that'll stop the leaking at least, tighten it up, and I'll be able to eliminate that. If it does keep making the noise, then it's either the front diff or this bearing, so then I could replace this bearing as the next choice. That's actually very nice. Smooth. Flange. Normal amount of play. That's fine. That's loose. Greasy. Pretty dirty. But I mean, primarily it allows me to. The screw's loose. It allows me to check this nut because the other one's loose. Oh dear me. And that screw is rounded. It is moving. Completely knackered. I need a new one. Okay. What have we got on the back here? So we've got a bit of splatter. Not too much. Surprised that this wasn't leaking, to be honest. A bit greasy on there. It rotates smoothly, there's no play. You can hear noise, that might be planet gears, there's no oil in it at the moment. This cover on here is missing. Let me test the nut. Yeah, that's on tight. Okay, I think that's good for the moment. It's good to rule out the fact that the problem we found on the front is not the same on the rear. There's a bit of a weep, could be replaced at some point, but I'm not going to investigate that now. I've got to get to the Gaydon Land Rover show in a couple of days, so I don't want to open up more cans of worms. Because if I do take this off and the flange is scored and it needs a new flange, then that's lead time. There's no point putting an oil back on, so I'll leave it for the moment. New nut.
So I put the front prop back on and the noise is still gone. So that's good. I've ruled out one of the 5 drivetrain noises. Actually, one of them is tyre noise, so I won't count that. So of the 4 drivetrain noises, 1 has been solved, which was basically a loose flange on the front output housing of the transfer box. So the 3 left are grinding as it's coming to a stop, noise on overrun, noise on power, that basically changes with road speed. So I'm really kind of suspecting gearbox. I mean, worst case scenario is the gearbox. Having done the checked out the oil, which you can see in one of my other videos, the oil that came out of the gearbox was horrendous. So really, it's probably the gearbox that's the issue. But I can't rule out the diffs. You know, diffs can be a bit of a problem. There's slight play in the front flange, in the front diff flange, but the noise was still there when the front prop was removed. So I can check out the rear. That'll be the next stage for diagnosis. Remove the rear prop, drive reduce the front one, and then see if that changes anything. I'll do that in a different video if I do that. For the moment though, I'm kind of happy with the drivetrain noises. There's no real like grind. I've solved the grinding noise above 90 kilometers an hour, which is the real one, makes you go, oh, you know, don't really like that noise. But the whining, you know, it's just there. It's just in the background. In the short term, I'm not that worried with it. Obviously, I want to get the rebuild everything at some point in the future. But in the short term, yeah, I'm not worried about these noises. They're whining. It's funny going in my 97 Defender now, which is my daily driver, absolutely silent. You know, I can hear some slight noises on overrun, which are probably UJs, but compared to this, is absolutely silent. It's amazing how desensitized you can get to this. So, yeah, originally jumping into this when I went to Armenia, you're like, oh wow, these noises are horrendous. But you drive it a bit more, and you know, I drove it across Europe. You start to get a bit more comfortable with the noises and realise it's not necessarily going to explode. As long as it's got oil in it, it's not going to explode in the short term. I was half expecting the drivetrain noises to change after I'd changed the gearbox and transfer box oil video. You'll see the transfer box oil in an upcoming video, but they haven't changed with fresh oil in there, which is a bit disappointing because I did that on my 200 TDI once. The oil that came out was pretty gross. I put some ATF in, and the gearbox noise just went down quite a few decibels. It was really noticeable. That was interesting just by changing the oil. Hasn't happened here though. I think all the damage has been done, and it's you know, it's not necessarily, potentially new oil would change the friction coefficient, which might be generating noise. This is probably just general wear, like bearings and what have you. I did say I was planning on replacing the front prop with a brand new one, which I do have, and I haven't done that because these 4 UJs are absolutely perfect. I've never felt such good UJs, free, you know, no binding, no noise, no roughness in any direction. Actually incredible. That's really surprised me. I was expecting a vehicle like this, which has spent a lot of its life operating in a hot and dusty environment which eats at UJs very frequently. I was expecting the UJs to be completely knackered and that to be part of the problem with the noises, but that hasn't been the case. So I'm very surprised with that, but it does lead it to think about it being, you know, some of the more major drivetrain transmission units. Anyway, that was my diagnosis process for figuring out what the noises were on this Defender, which I bought with no service history and was completely new to me last year. And I think I've gone some way to figuring out what one of those noises were, and well, got the rest of the other ones to deal with in the future. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.